Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the 1/106 of the Second Photography podcast. You may remember Ben from older episodes, and he's joining us today. And Ben, sadly for me, but probably positively for him, moved away to another country. We did plan to keep in touch and we did plan to keep going and do various things, but I think life got in the way. Would you agree with that, Ben?
Definitely. Well, first of all, hello. It's good to be back again. Yeah, apologies for, as I said, the delay in doing this podcast. You are right; things get in the way. Moving country was a lot more hectic than I thought it would be. Plus, I'm working and started German school as well. So, unfortunately, things got put to the back of my mind whilst rewriting it in German.
I actually wasn't going to give away what country Ben had moved to, but there's probably only two countries in the world where you might need to learn German. I'll say no more on that. Before we start, I just want to say this episode is sponsored by purpleport.com. Before Ben left, we set each other a challenge that we would do because we knew we were going to take a break for a bit. So we set each other a challenge. So this episode is really just called Challenge. So I set Ben the challenge of doing some street photography in his new environment and location so that I could see what it's like. Ben typically did work with models, did composite, did a lot of green screen, but had never really done any street photography. So I set him that challenge. Ben, what challenge did you set me?
It was for a green screen composite, which I believe you weren't exactly familiar with. Well, not used to doing.
I'd actually done green screen for video quite successfully. It's fiddly green screen for video, but my heart sunk when you said green screen because while it's not that difficult, I had incredible difficulty getting a model. In fact, I couldn't really get a model. I thought I'll do a cosplay thing against a green screen, and I knew there were other ways of doing it. For example, you could do blue screen, you could do green screen, you can do it against white, you can do it against black.
Yeah, any stark colour really.
Yeah, that's different to the skin colour or what someone is wearing. So if someone's wearing like a blue suit, you're probably not going to do blue screen because it'll just be their head. But yeah, any colour different to what you're trying to isolate. I had real difficulty because a few models cancelled on me, things didn't go my way, and in the end I thought I'll do it against black. But at the time, because it was so hot, I was doing outdoor shoots. But I came up with a way to do it. And we'll talk about that now. So, Ben, you can see my screen, can't you?
I can indeed, yes.
I worked with this model. This was the Bank Holiday weekend. So for those not familiar with the Bank Holiday weekend in the UK, it was May Day weekend. It was incredibly warm, humid and hot. And this was probably in the evenings. This was Sunday. You can see here, this bit's illuminated. And the reason it's illuminated, if I scroll through my images, this is a perfect one. I got these soft boxes. So these are soft strip boxes. And there's a company called Round Flash who made the sort of large pop-up round flash that you put on your camera and on your flash, and there are loads of imitations now. You can buy them for £16. So it's a company in Poland and they do a really good job, and they've made a beauty dish, and they came out with this strip box which is amazing because it folds up into a bag. It takes up no size. You just attach it to a lighting pole and you put your flash in the bottom, and it's a strip light with a grid inside. Fantastic. But they were quite expensive. They're about £64. And if you're going to use strip lights, you need two. So I bought some cheap Chinese alternatives, and I think they were £25 each. So for less than one of the original, I got two things. So I set them up next to the model with flashes in. You have to get quite close to the model. And the idea was I was going to shoot with high-speed sync, and because it was late in the day, I would black out the whole background. Now, that was the plan. That worked really well for one of the flashes. The other flash wouldn't play ball for some reason. They're both high-speed sync flashes. I was using high-speed triggers. I shouldn't have had a problem, but lo and behold, I did. So this is my first image, underexposed, because I'm shooting at 1,250th of a second at f2.8, ISO 50, so I really lowered things to get a black background. You can see here, one of them's firing, but I don't think the other one's firing. Firing this side, not firing that side. You can see me scratching my head, checking things, going through it again. Oh, look, one fires, one doesn't. One fires, one doesn't. One fires, one doesn't. In the end, I gave up. I just used one flash. I'm just going to reset this. I'm just taking the edits off, basically. This was what I got shooting at 1/500th of a second with flash. I illuminated the model enough that if I black out the background, which is like a green leafy background, I can get her isolated. So this is what I did. Then I turned it black and white. Then I think I did some editing. This was my final image. So I've got a black background. I've got the model illuminated. This is what it's like in colour, but I preferred it in black and white, interestingly. So then, are you familiar with using layer blending mode of screen, Ben?
Yep.
So I thought, if I use screen, I can work with the black background. So I found this image on a free stock website, which was actually a colour image and was sort of this, sort of had a matrix look in its white balance of sort of a dull, everything had a dull greenness to it, like it does in the film The Matrix and its subsequent sequels. I put this person in and I selected screen, and then I put another layer on of her, and then I started sort of brushing it in with layer masks. And the background I lowered in sort of, I made it more dark so that it fitted in. So, and the only problem really is, because I rushed it as well, we get this bit here. Can you see that? That wouldn't matter if the background was dark. So it doesn't matter against the dark background. So you can see here, I haven't quite got a good fix here. And here it's where I haven't done a particularly good job masking in. I was actually doing this really quickly. If I had more, and here as well, if I had more time, I would have done a better job masking. And here as well. Round here as well wasn't particularly brilliant. So round the edges of her body, this section that I didn't mask in particularly well was over here in the really dark section. It wouldn't matter. You won't be able to notice it against black. So that's what I've done, and I much preferred it in black and white, but I did manage to get a green screen-esque composite done in the time, and this is the result. So talk me through your critique of it.
Was that all done in Lightroom?
It was done in Photoshop. So let me just go back to that image I got in Lightroom. So everything here was done in Lightroom. All editing, all sort of skin correction and everything was done in Lightroom. And then I exported to Photoshop. CS3 is what I'm using. And I put the background in the back and I did the blending and masking in Photoshop.
For rushing it, like you said, and with the faulty lighting that the strip light that you used, it's certainly not bad. My main critique is the model compared to the background. The background does appear like quite stark and contrasty, where model, I don't know, the greys seem a bit, I'd say, sort of dull. Yeah, that with composites, that's easily one of the main things, because obviously you have to light the model well, but you also have to think, like, try and imagine what the lighting is going to be like when it comes to editing, and that could be in a day, a week, a month.
I think the contrast is often, and I did adjust the contrast in Photoshop of the background because it wasn't quite dark enough. So I tried to make my background dark enough, but leave enough bits in. But yeah, no, I think you're right. It's almost like the lighting is off, really.
Where the skyscraper towards the background, where it juts out at a right angle, you can see there's sort of like a less than 45-degree shadow from the other building. So it looks like if it was illuminated by the sun, it would definitely be from the very high top left. So for those people
at home who clearly can't see what we're talking about, have to rely on my wishful words. The background is looking down a street in a city, and it has a man at the end walking towards us. So you've got skyscrapers on the right, skyscrapers on the left. Those are quite dark, and you've got what I would say is a dark sky, but it actually is that is the lightest part of the scene. So it's all quite high contrast. You could say it had a high clarity as well, but the model doesn't. The model is also side lit due to the challenges I had. She's lit from one side. She's not lit from the front. In the background image, I'd say it's backlit.
Yeah, well, like I said, if you flip the model, then the shadow position would match the background image,
actually, isn't it?
No, other than like the bleed at the edge, like you said, but you've already picked up on that. But no, nothing other than that. I think, like you said, for the rush time and the strip lighting not working, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Done bad.
Yeah, that's where the light is coming in, and you can tell really by the pool of light here. So it's the light you're getting here down the bottom of the image that sort of gave me the clue of where it's being illuminated from. The foreground and the background, I suppose, don't match in terms of lighting. So the shadows are being cast from camera right to camera left, whereas they should be being cast from back to front, really, if we were being accurate. Right, any other critique?
Probably make the model image a bit smaller, and then possibly crop the image a bit tighter to the background, because the background does give a huge scale, because you've obviously got the skyscrapers and that tiny man in the background, and then this giant woman right in front of the camera. I would also blur the background as well, remove that man, possibly lighten parts of the background image as well.
What type of things could I do to make it look realistic? Put some noise over both layers, do you think? What could I do to make it look more realistic? We've talked about shadows and lighting. Any other tricks to make it look more realistic?
I'd have a play with the model, like you mentioned, bring the contrast, try and make it a bit starker, but keep the realism and try and match the background as much as possible.
In Lightroom as well. Yep, so remove the man. I did think about giving it a blur, because it wouldn't be in such sharp focus as the foreground. But I think due to time I forgot, and rushing I forgot. Anything else? To be fair to the model, I don't think she knew where she would end up in this Matrix-style city. I don't think she was aware of that. I did try and describe what I was doing. Right, so give me a score out of 10, please. Be honest.
For everything altogether, the end product, I would have to say maybe a 3 or a 4.
Then. Let's keep it fair. Can I see your images now? So just to recap for our listeners, Ben was tasked with doing street photography, something he's never done before, in a German-speaking country.
Obviously doing street photography. I have bought myself a new camera. Well, I say new, second-hand, Canon 5D Mark II, which I've wanted a new choice. Camera for a while.
Did you get that with a mind for video, or did you get that for stills, or are you looking at both?
I think mainly for stills, but video quality on it is brilliant as well. Me being silly and not checking, didn't realise that hardly any of my lenses would fit, because my other camera is a 650D. So if you are buying a new camera,
Ben had mostly EFS lenses, which are Canon's lenses really for the APS-C bodies, like your 650D, your 80D, which of course don't fit the full EF range.
Yeah, so the only lens that fits is my 50mm lens. For street photography, I think you kind of need a zoom lens for that, so you can get people without being too in their face. So what I've done is I've got a model to pose for me, but she is out on the street. So technically it is street photography. But that's not something I've really done before anyway, like taking photos on the street or taking photos of models on the street. And also there was like a crowded pub right in front of where we were taking photos. I would have chosen, if possible, I'd have liked somewhere isolated, but that was the best place, I think. So I'll show you the pictures.
Yeah, that's really good.
Can you see that fully? So she's a young 18-year-old Vietnamese cosplayer who lives in Hanover, and she's got a massive selection of wigs and costumes and contact lenses. For her age, she's surprisingly good. It's the second shoot I've done with her. I've done another one in the fantasy shoot in the forest, which I still need to edit, but that's going to be
a lot of Photoshop. It looks like it was taken at night, and you've got the model leaning against a window with a neon sign. I suspect that was taken in daylight, and you've edited it to look like it was done at night time. Is that correct?
It was taken at 9 at night. I'll show you quickly the... Well, it was 9. It was still technically it was nighttime, but it was still really bright. I could have done with going out a few hours later. So this is how bright the raw images are. I mean, if I zoom in on her sunglasses, you can see the sky there. How bright
looks like
it is.
It was still just after sunset. Were you in shades as well?
Yeah, it was down a street of quite high buildings, so there was a bit of shade from that.
So again, this looks like, if I said Blade Runner, that might be a bit cliche. It's not a Blade Runner image. It's a dark image where you're drawn to the neon, and it looks like the model is illuminated. The model is a bit underexposed, but illuminated by the sign, and I guess that's the look you were going for. I think that works really well, and you've got this reflection in the window, which is good. Just talk me through how you edited it, if you don't mind.
Start with the basic image.
I can. That's really good.
Can you see that? Yeah. So I start with the basic image, import it, use the auto white balance. I then bring it in and duplicate the layer, and then put it back into Camera Raw and put on a fluorescent light white balance, which gave it sort of bluer hue. And then obviously smooth all get rid of all the stray hairs, smooth the skin out, remove myself from her glasses, and then put on extra glow from the light, an additional curves layer, and then above that curves layer,
Let's talk about what that curve layer does. So it's very easy for me to see that the curve layer darkens things. No, subtly, I wouldn't say it darkens things massively. Why did you choose to darken things with curves?
Easier with curves because it's non-destructive. A lot of people will edit the actual image itself and then 20 steps down the line realize they've made a mistake, that they've gone too far back to change it. So with curves, you can obviously just bring it on and off. You can go back into any time and change any of the parameters. And if needs be, you can do adjustment layers on it like that and just select certain bits to have the curves on it. So you can do it what you can with curves to the rest, like to the whole image, but it's a lot more versatile and I think secure, safe. Yeah. So after the curves, I then copied the background image again and put it back into Camera Raw and bumped up the clarity and vibrance, and then put a adjustment layer on it just to do the hair and
Can I just say what
jacket.
That's done for those people who can't see the image is that's brought out the colour tones on the model's hair and sort of down the shoulder and down the side. Would you agree?
Yes. And then after that, select the neon lights and put
you made the neon more intense and more noticeable. Very good.
And then a colour fill layer just to bring it down a bit more. Export that into Lightroom.
And I can see you played with the curve. You played with the tone curve in Lightroom. You've dropped the vibrance and saturation, boosted the clarity, and you've dropped highlights and whites, raised the shadows, and lowered the exposure, I would say, in Lightroom.
That's in Photoshop. That's it into Lightroom. And temperature and tint slightly as well. And also brush tool selected the sign and adjusted the clarity and vibrance on that as well. So if you notice it here, obviously I've put on the extra glow in Photoshop and then it's gone in Lightroom. Well, not gone, it's probably dropped it by about 70 to 80%.
It's a good image. Has the model seen it?
She's seen the first one, yes. I've sent her that one. I literally finished these last two just before when we were starting the podcast. I only took them Friday night and then got home from the shoot and it was the blood moon, so I wanted to go out and try and take photos of that. But obviously with the 50mm lens, that's not really possible. And then yesterday I was at a German wedding all day. Didn't get a chance. That's also why my voice is a bit croaky today.
I can't tell there's a croak in your voice communicating over VoIP anyway. You sound just like you normally do, actually. So my critique of the image, it's a really good image. You wouldn't think it had been taken just about town. If I'm sort of giving constructive criticism, I think what was unfortunate, which you have no control over once you're in the editing stage, is the panes of the window. You've got this excellent window which gives reflections. The metal part of the window cuts through the model. I think if you'd maybe taken an image without the model there, maybe on a tripod, I appreciate that's difficult to do. Could have got rid of that possibly, or if you'd reframed, you could have maybe taken that out in the editing. But I think it would have been really good without those sort of panes there. But I appreciate on a location you are a bit limited as well.
Building itself is a very small. It's actually a Barbers. The whole sign says Barbers in the sky. But I thought if the model's there with a sign that says Barbers, it wouldn't make no sense. That's why I've just cropped it to the in the sky bit. But it is quite a small building, so it's probably no more than like 12 feet across. So there's not much room to have the model in shot with that the beams going down.
With that context of it's a barber's shop, I think you did really well to spot that and crop out Barbers. It's like you say, it has an air of mystery in the sky, but with was in the sky, it wouldn't make sense. So Ben's bringing up an image that's maybe a bit wider. I think had you taken a picture of that text of Barbers in the sky, that itself would have been a very good street photography image. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's quite a popular photo location in Hanover. It's in the old town, so it's like very old traditional German buildings near the bars, and you've just got this bright red Barbers in the sky sign.
I had great difficulty achieving the challenge you set me. And I sort of cheated by changing the parameters a bit. I didn't do a green screen because I just couldn't get anyone to do that. I tried to black out the background and do it that way. And I think you've gone out and maybe followed a similar thing. You've taken a picture of something, or somebody, I should say. You've taken a picture that maybe was a little loose with the brief, like I've done, and that's not a criticism because of course I've done exactly the same. Yeah, I think it's good. It's certainly different, and it certainly wasn't what I was expecting. And the end image is really strong. And maybe for you, under 10 Photoshop layers is quite good. I don't know.
One I did the other day because I'm doing some concept art for a computer game. I think I was up to about 80 or 90 layers at the end.
Anything like that. I did some video work. When you zoom out and you look at the whole, you zoom out on the timeline and you look at the whole thing from start to finish. It had so many layers and so many intricacies. It looked like a building. And of course, my computer crashed. Because, and I knew it would. I had a time pressure to finish this work. It was incredibly complex, and it crashed. And I would worry about using Photoshop and having 80 layers because I would know I would feel like I was on borrowed time, and I would be expecting a crash. Does that make sense?
It does. I've never had anything like that. I've never had any processing issues with it, no matter how many layers I've got. I think obviously because it's just a single image that you're building on instead of obviously video where it's gigs and gigs of footage of audio and video which you're expanding on. That's when it's even the short video work on my MacBook. It certainly kicks out a lot of heat when it's trying to run stuff. But with Photoshop, I don't really have that issue.
Photoshop crash. I've never had Lightroom crash actually. I've always been quite impressed with the programs.
I had it crash because before I was on Mac, I was obviously Windows. I bought myself that Lenovo Yoga IdeaPad when it was on Windows 8. Loved it. Went to 8.1, hated it. Then went to Windows 10. When I had that, it was just buggy as hell and just kept crashing. Even Lightroom, I could be working on an image and it crashed 3 or 4 times.
Windows 10. I had to have Vista, and I liked Vista, but maybe I was the only person in the world who actually liked Vista. But there we are. Yeah, definitely one of the few. I thought it wasn't bad actually, and it was certainly a step up from XP in my opinion. It's probably time for me to give you a score out of 10. I'm going to give you a score out of 10, not for doing the challenge, but for the image. And I'm going to give you a 7 out of 10. Irrespective of how sort of loose you've been with street photography, I'm going to give you a 7 out of 10, and I'm going to say you've won it. I do still want to do some green screen work. How do you still feel about doing some street photography around your immediate city?
If I can take pictures of like signs and that, then yeah, I can do that anytime. I mean, I go into town every day because I'm studying there. Unfortunately, things don't start getting like nice and vibrant until night. But of course, we're in the middle of summer. Nighttime here is like 9-10 o'clock at night when I've got to be going to bed because I'm up early. But weekends,
if you're going into town and you're walking for 10 minutes, that is the ideal, and you're doing it daily, that is the ideal time to do street photography. In your commute, if you've got 10 minutes, have your camera ready, see something that's interesting on the street, take a picture of it, because that is street photography.
Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about just having a 50mm lens. I think that's a fine thing for street photography. What you can do is, if you sort of face someone and look like you're going to take their picture, they might be a bit unhappy about that. But if you stand like you're taking a picture of a building and they walk through and you take the picture, they just think, oh, I've ruined your shot. But actually, you were trying to get them in the shot anyway, and they've actually made your shot, but they don't realise it. Yeah, if you rock up like a tourist and look like you're taking a picture of a building, someone will walk through and you just take it when they walk through and you go, oh, and take another one maybe as they walk away. But they will never know that they featured in your street photography image. And I'm guessing, due to the weather, you're going to struggle with light and shadows, aren't you? It's just going to be very bright. So if there are any alleys where you've got dark and at the end you've got light, or you've got pools of light, a sort of street photography thing is waiting for someone to walk into a pool of light. That always looks really good. But I don't know how possible it is in this weather at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say we're not struggling for light at the moment. It's not too much of it. I can certainly have a look. I'll have a look tomorrow around the vicinity of where I'll be. and then maybe from Tuesday I'll start taking it in.
Yours is much more accessible to
me.
do. I've got to find. I did think about doing still life with against a green screen or Lego figures because I just struggled so much to find a model who would do it, and it had to be something interesting. I felt like cosplay, something like that, and I just could not, even for wanting of trying, could not find someone who wanted to do it for free as well. I didn't want to pay them either. I wanted to do it for free, and I think I put out 2 or 3 castings as well. So I put notices out that I was looking for people to do cosplay and do a fantasy style shoot. I wasn't getting anyone who was local enough, wanted to do it for free, had a suitable costume. Couldn't get anyone.
Strange. Well, lucky for me, this the model I used on my street photography and the other one. In fact, I've got it on screen share. I'll show you one of the other pictures I did of a previous shoot. I'm going to be hopefully doing a lot more work with her, and I'm going to be combining practical photography, green screen, and digital painting with some future cosplay shoots.
If I describe the image I'm seeing, it's the same model with a completely different look, more sort of a typical Japanese look of a sort of a white skirt, long blonde hair, in a forest at sunset with an umbrella. And it's a very good image. Well done.
Thanks. There's it's the first shoot I did with my new camera. So this set, there's I've got about 8 or 9 other images to do, but they're going to be, like I said, quite heavily photoshopped. So they're going to be, and that wig wasn't as neat as that when we're doing the shoots. That's taking a lot of time to sort out.
That would annoy me. I know you have to do that sort of thing, but yeah, fine tuning single hairs I'd find quite tedious.
Yeah, but I love doing it though.
So you've won the challenge. You've clearly settled into continuing photography in your new home. So well done. I'm still struggling getting a cosplay shoot, but there we are. And it is something I'd like to do. And I went along some time ago to like a Comic-Con thing in London, and that, there were great people there. And I just took my small mirrorless camera and I got some great shots of Iron Man, not the actual Iron Man, but someone who'd made an Iron Man costume, and some really good things. I thought, God, if I brought a flash and maybe had an assistant, I could get some really good high-speed sync images where the background is black and really make them stand out and pop. It was just me, but I was happy with what I got. But it just seems where I live maybe isn't the centre of cosplay world.
No, it's plus I think the really good cosplayers like that Iron Man, some of the costumes you see, they're not going to be packing it in a suitcase and bringing it on a train. It's delicate.
No, he would be flying to the shoots. So I do hope to do some more in the future, and hopefully you're going to be sort of photographing and documenting and doing shoots and giving me a sort of look at what you're getting up to over there. So I'm going to draw this episode to a close. I hope you've liked listening to it, and I hope you found it useful. Don't forget you can support the podcast using Patreon, and that is patreon.com/160SPP, which is 1/60 of the Second Photography Podcast. There's also bonus stuff on there, and you get early access and you get access to the whole sort of back catalogue. So do consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, because it is expensive to run a podcast and there are fees and costs and things which I'm shelling out for. And thank you again to Ben for spending this Sunday afternoon recording a podcast with me. Oh, Ben, before I forget, where can everyone find your work on the internet?
You can look at my shiny new website, benmorehousemedia.com, and I'm also on Instagram with the same name.
And I will put
Ben Morehouse
a link
Media
in the description of the show to those websites and Instagram. What sort of stuff have you got on your website? Is it commercial? Is it personal?
Which is not. It's not personal. Like it's my dear diary. It's some commercial photography stuff. A lot of my own stuff. Things I've retouched and edited for other people, for examples, to show you my abilities. Starting doing a blog with my latest one is 4-step guide in making your own brushes in Photoshop, and there's also video links to my YouTube page where I do my speed photoshopping. So I screen record when I'm doing an image.
That sounds great. I'm certainly going to go over and have a look at that a bit later. So I'd like to thank Ben, and I'd like to thank you, the listeners, and thank you and goodbye.